I'm Andrew, and I'm setting out to make better videos for diesel enthusiasts. Follow along as I review products, do how-tos, and share my personal trucks here on Just Diesels.
Out of all the cool stuff that I have in my third gen, for some reason, the one thing that all of you guys always ask me about is the free spin hubs. And so I decided to actually make a video about this purely because of all the people that have DM'd me, commented, messaged, emailed me, literally every form of communication asking me about these hubs. And I had no idea so many people cared about free spins. So to keep this organized, we're gonna talk about a couple things. We're gonna talk about what free spin kits do, what free spin kits are on the market, and then I'm gonna kind of run you guys through the pros and cons of it. You know, is it really worth it? What I've thought of having them on my truck, what they're like after having, you know, almost 100,000 miles put on the hubs. So let's dig into this. To start out with, what is the point of a free spin kit? So free spin hubs basically allow you to disengage the front drive line when you were driving. So traditionally on a Ram truck, when you are in two-wheel drive going down the street, your whole front running gear is spinning. So your half shafts out of your axle are spinning, your drive shaft is spinning, all that stuff is spinning up front. And what that does is it creates frictional drag, but it's also gonna just wear out those parts, right? Your U-joints in your drive shaft, all that stuff is constantly working even when you're not in four-wheel drive. And so that stuff is gonna wear out faster. So the whole point of a free spin hub is to disengage that whole front drive line to one, improve fuel economy, and two, reduce wear on those front end parts. So that's the whole point of these systems. Obviously, the other big benefit of them is that they are way stronger than your traditional unit bearing setup. So traditionally, these Ram trucks run what's called a unit bearing, or a replaceable front hub that basically just bolts onto the truck, the bearings built into that. So when the bearing failures happens, you basically just unbolt that assembly, put on a new unit bearing assembly, and you're good to go down the road. So basically that's a little bit less strong. There's less bearings involved, there's less surface area for wear. You know, if you're running big wheel and tire setups, 37s, 40s, or like big stand setups, you're definitely gonna be going through front hubs. So that's a key advantage of these free spin kits is that they have a way more robust setup. They're gonna take those wide wheels, big tires, no problem for hundreds of thousands of miles. Now, out of the kits on the market, what you're gonna be looking at is the two primary ones are gonna be Yukon and Dynatrac. So Yukons are gonna run just shy of about 2,000 bucks, give or take, well, depending on when you're looking. Dynatrac is going to run over $2,000. They also have two options. They have the Warren hubs, and then they have the Dynalock hubs. The Dynalock is gonna be the more premium option. But yeah, they're over $2,000 for a set of hubs. So to put that in perspective, let's say you went with a traditional set of SKF hubs. SKF is going to be kind of like the industry standard. They actually are the bearing that is in the OEM hubs. They're gonna be kind of the best thing that you can buy that's still traditional unit bearing, still just like a factory OEM replacement. Rock Auto is listing those for 165 bucks for a single hub, right? So for two hubs, you are nowhere near the price of a free spin kit. So that's something to consider. So you could go through a huge amount of standard SKF, which are a quality bearing replacement hubs, and still not cover the cost of a free spin kit. So from a financial standpoint, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do these. So why are people doing them? Now, like I said before, there's a big strength improvement, and that's really the main reason to do these. It is convenient to be able to lock the hub, unlock it, all that stuff, you know, reduce driveline wear, slightly improve fuel economy, but the big thing is gonna be strength. So that is kind of the key of why you'd wanna go to these. The one thing to remember though is that while the unit bearings are non-serviceable, right? You replace the entire unit, these free spin kits are serviceable. So that means that they do need to be pulled apart, greased, and when things go bad, you're gonna have to actually do a rebuild kit. So that's gonna be new seals and new bearings within that unit bearing assembly. The price for that rebuild kit, for example, if you're looking at the Dynatracs, you're gonna be paying out 125 bucks per hub for that rebuild kit. So that's not cheap either, right? That's almost the price of those SKF hubs. So you gotta think about that too when you're factoring this from a financial perspective. Does it really make sense to do the free spin kit? Kinda not really, but let's dig into my pros and cons and what I actually think about running these on my truck. In my personal experience running these on my truck, I will say that my truck does get better fuel economy than most of my friends that have pretty much identical trucks running standard hubs. That's something that actually might add up over the lifetime of the truck. So I would say maybe my fuel economy is 1 to 2 miles per gallon better at best than theirs. That might be generous. It's probably more like 1 mile to the gallon, but it definitely does make a difference in reducing front end drag and front end wear. The other thing I've noticed is that these hubs actually improve steering feel in the truck. So if I lock my front hubs and drive my truck, I actually notice a distinct change in the steering feel. The steering is actually much lighter and more precise with the hubs unlocked than when I have them locked and I'm spinning all that front running gear. So that's also something to consider, because these Rams don't have the best steering feel up front. And these hubs actually do pretty dramatically improve the steering feel on the truck. So I pretty much run mine unlocked all the time, which means that I'm having a lot less wear on my front end parts. So my front drive shaft, the U-joints at the end of the axle, all that stuff is not spinning, therefore it's not getting worn out. So that's the other key thing too that you have to factor in, is you're also saving money on replacing U-joints, drive shaft, all that stuff, because it's not spinning. So that is something that's actually really important. It does factor into the savings on these hubs. So if you really want to start calculating out the math, it's going to be fuel savings and saving the cost on the replacement of those parts, or if you're not skilled enough to replace them yourself, the labor to replace those parts as well, which does add up over the lifespan of the truck, especially since mine's got maybe 100,000 miles in these hubs. The one catch you have to factor in is obviously these hubs do need to be serviced. So if that's not something that you can do yourself to pull apart and grease them, you're gonna have to be paying someone to do that. And then you also will have to either paying someone to replace the bearings and seals eventually, or doing that labor yourself. You can figure out whatever that's worth depending on how it works out for you. Now, in terms of actually using these hubs, there's a couple of key flaws. One being that the times that I need to get out and lock these hubs are the times that I do not want to get out of my truck, right? So it's cool when I'm off-roading, you know, I'll get out, lock the hubs, that's fine. But there's times where I get caught by surprise, right? I'm backing up a trailer and it gets kind of muddy and I'm suddenly, you know, spinning out, I need to go into 4-wheel drive. Instead of being able to just click into 4-wheel drive, I got to somehow figure out how to perfectly keep my truck in place with a trailer behind it, hop out, lock the hubs. It's a cumbersome process. And I've had a lot of times where I got to climb out to lock the hubs in situations where I don't want to get out of the truck to lock the hubs, right? It's muddy, I'm, you know, sliding down a hill, something like that. It's not exactly the best time to be hopping out of the truck and getting there and locking the hubs. So you really got to plan ahead. Whereas like in a standard truck with normal hubs, you can just throw it in 4-wheel drive at any time. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing to consider is the hassle of rebuilding these. It's definitely easier to just replace a unit bearing on the truck. You know, it's a couple of bolts, pull it off, put it back on, done. Not quite that simple, but still, it's definitely easier than rebuilding these hubs. Having pulled them apart and greased them, it's not the funnest process. So that is something to consider. The other thing to consider is obviously the cost. I don't think that there's any way you could ever rationalize the cost of these hubs. There is no mathematical equation where these work out financially in your favor. If you're buying these hubs, you're basically buying them for the strength, you're buying them for the reduced front end wear and, you know, improved steering feel, but you're not ever gonna be able to rationalize the cost of these hubs up front with long-term savings in fuel or hub replacement or anything else, right? They're just expensive straight up, and they're gonna be kind of a luxury novelty item on the truck. So if you ask me and you pin me down asking if this was my decision to put these hubs on, would I go out and spend $2,500 on these hubs? I would probably say no. They're convenient, they're nice to have. It's cool to not have front end wear. You know, one time I had a U-joint go out in my truck and it was really nice because I didn't have to worry about it. I was off-road, so I was in 4-wheel drive and I noticed that I was having a rotational noise in my truck. All I had to do was unlock the front hubs and suddenly that wasn't spinning. I could drive the whole way home. I had to drive 3 states, but it didn't matter because my front drive shafts are spinning. So that was really convenient. Otherwise I would have been stuck there on the side of the road. It's a tough call. I mean, there's definitely some conveniences to this. It's nice to have the fuel economy savings. It's nice to have that option to unlock the hubs if you have a front end parts failure. But if you're on the fence about these, you really got to consider the pros and cons and how you will actually be using your truck. For probably 90% of people, I think just doing an SKF unit bearing is a much better option. If you're really looking for the best of the best and you really want those additional little features of having the locking hubs, they're cool. But if this is my truck, I probably wouldn't do it again. So let me know what you guys think. I'm curious, but a lot of people ask me for a review of these. And this is my honest, legitimate opinion about these hubs, but they are pretty cool. They're nice to have in the truck. And the best thing is that the previous owner put them on, so I just get to enjoy them. So thank you guys so much. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, comment down below. I'm curious what you guys think about free spins. If you have any on your truck, let me know. So thanks so much. I'll catch you guys in the next video.